Good afternoon, everyone. It's Louise here from Eleanor Grace. So this is the first proper video for the new stitch along, which is our Japanese inspired stitch along using various techniques. So we're going to start off with a sort of Boro Sashiko inspired bunting, which you can see some of the little bunting pieces I've made here. I just wanted to go over again briefly what you're going to need for the whole stitch along, including the bunting, and moving on to the Kanzashi flowers and the piece of Boro sampler that we're going to do at the end. So I'll just go through what you need for this stitch along. I have sold out of the packs now, which had a bit of everything that you need to add to your existing stashes. I do have a little bit of fabric left, and I do have some of the ribbon and some bits and bobs, so I will just show you what you need. What you need for the first piece, which is for the bunting, is ideally some Japanese oriental themed fabrics. So these are actually from Japan. Let's have them the right way round. And as you can see, indigo is a very key theme in Japanese, which I will tell you a bit more about later. So anything with a bit of pattern, or if you haven't got access to Japanese fabrics, batiks will be a good alternative. Also anything with a bit of a pattern, a sort of flowery pattern for something that you can cut out. So I'll just get an example, which is this piece here. So this is actually a piece of from the V&A museum collection, which is it is Japanese theme, but anything like this where you've got a floral print with flowers that you could cut out, that will be very helpful. As I say, I have some bits left. This is another lovely Japanese fabric, so I've got some of these pieces which I will chop up and put into the onto my Etsy shop over the next week or two. So if you want to have a look, this is one of my favourites. It needs a good iron, but oh, it's a lovely fabric. So some nice patterned fabrics, ideally with a Japanese theme, but batik will do just as well. A bit like this sort of, dyed, with sort of tie-dye, or a batik theme would do very nice. What you need as well will ideally be 2 meters of a strong ribbon, like a grosgrain. So this, if I pull this up a little bit just to show you, this is a grosgrain ribbon. Don't know how well you can see that. That's the white one, and I've got, oh sorry, that's the nude pink one. It isn't coming out very pink on this video, but that's the white one. So I've still got a fair amount of these left, so I will be selling these by the meter. If you want to purchase these separately for the stitch along, then do order 2 meters, because otherwise I will cut it at a meter, and for the bunting you need 2 meters of this. So you want a grosgrain has got this sort of ridge detail, but it's quite strong, quite firm. You don't want any ribbon that's too floppy, and you definitely need 2 meters as a probably would be perfect for the bunting. What you would need also for our Kanzashi flowers, which I can just show you here, these Kanzashi flowers here, these are made out of ribbon. So we have here organza ribbon. This is 4 to 4.5 inches, which is 4 to 4.5 centimeters wide, which is 1.5 to 1 3/4 inches. You probably don't want to go wider than 2 inches. This one here is 1 3/4, and that's probably big enough for me. This is a bit fiddly, so again I've got some of these which I will bundle up on the Etsy shop, so you could get these. That's to make these soft little organza flowers here. And the other ones, which are this is This one's made in silk, and we've got taffeta. So you want a strong fabric like that that holds its shape. You don't want something too soft. As you can see, I can push that in, but it's going to hold its shape. So ideally, you could use like a satin, like a Duchess satin, but that will be quite thick and it will hurt the hands. So I find that a silk dupion like this is perfect. And again, I have a little bit of silk dupion left. I don't think I have it in that colour, but I will again put some stuff up on the shop if anyone wants to get a little pack of, so you've got a bit of everything, a bit of fabric, a bit of the ribbon, and a bit of the silk dupion. I've got some of the silk dupion here to show you actually. These are some lovely colours I've got bits of. So it's yeah, it's a lovely fabric, but as you can see, it does molt like anything, so it is quite tricky to work with, but it will be a nice challenge, and we will have fun doing that. So that is something else that you need. You also might want to get some suitable thread. Now, I wouldn't really recommend using embroidery floss because it doesn't have very good tensile strength, and so when you start stitching in the way we're going to, you might find it difficult. So I would say that probably a good idea would be to get some Sashiko thread like this, which is sort of becoming fairly well available now. Certainly in the UK you can get it in several places. Again, I have bought a stock which I bought for the packs that I've made up, and I have got some left, so I will again be adding it to some little mini bundles, and they will be termed your Japanese stitch along mini bundles, so you will know that it includes a little bit of everything, just so you've got something to try. So I will probably give about sort of 5 meters of this, just to have a go with it, just to have a bit of fun with some Sashiko thread. If you can't get hold of Sashiko, then I would say probably a cotton perlé. You know me, my favourite, cotton perlé 8 is about roughly the same weight as this. A cotton perlé 12 is a bit thinner, but both the cotton perlés have a bit more of the tensile strength, so it won't snap when you're stitching with, as I think embroidery floss might. But if you don't, and you just got embroidery floss and that's what you want to use, then I would say let's give it a go. I might even try a bit as well. But you'll probably need to use it fairly thick, so you probably need to use 4 to 6 strands. But I would say if you can get hold of a bit of Sashiko thread, you know, then do try that out. It's actually quite lovely to stitch with. I've been trying it. So let me check my list. We also need little scraps of, ideally some scraps of linen, or something sort of thick enough to paste together to make our little Boro. Let me show you that. This is my little Boro sampler. Oh, there's a bit of fabric I was looking for. That's the one I was looking for to show you. This is the Japanese fabric, but to show you the sort of thing you might have in your stash that's not necessarily Japanese, but has good sort of flowers that you can cut out. Nothing too small, but you know, these are a bit on the small side, but you know, we're going to be doing I'll give you a prompt next week for these, which I will talk about then. So yes, some pieces to make up, you know, little squares, little scraps to make up one of these would be great. And also I would say it would be worth getting yourself some sort of lightweight backing fabric. So I'm not using a backing fabric as such on this, like I'm not using any felt, which I normally would back my pieces with. What I'm using is a lightweight calico. You can see all my stitching here. Let's have a look at that. So a lightweight calico, light to medium weight calico. That's because we're going to be making this bunting double-sided. So we'll move on to talking about the bunting in particular. The other thing I have bought recently is a Sashiko needle. I'm just going to show you that. Again, you don't have to, this is optional, But if you are somebody like me who likes to buy all the kit, Sashiko needles are quite lovely actually. They're quite sharp. They have a large eye, which is gold. Well, this one is gold. I don't know if they always are, but it makes it quite nice and easy to thread that Sashiko thread. Also, it's good for anything slightly thicker that you've got, like cotton perlé 8 that you're using, or maybe almost a full strand of embroidery floss. So yeah, it's been quite nice to work with it. It's quite thick actually. The shaft of the needle is quite thick, but that is probably a bit to do with the history of Boro and Sashiko, which I thought I'd give you a little sort of update on, just for you to get some background to what we're going to be doing here. So in terms of the history of Boro and Sashiko, so Boro, or the longer form that it comes from, is Boro, and it means rags. So Japanese people, particularly in the north of the region, tended to have, be quite poor and not have the money to, replace their clothes, and it also was very cold, so they did sort of visible mending, which is what Boro is, and they would put together layers to make their clothes sort of built up so they were a bit stronger and a bit warmer for the climate there. They also were not allowed to buy fancy colours, fancy fabrics. They weren't allowed to, they didn't have the money to do that anyway. But so this is where indigo came in, and that's why indigo is such a big thing in Japanese fabric, and particularly in Boro and Sashiko. And this is because they they had to use whatever they had. So they had only things like hemp plants, flax, rami is another one, and they dyed this with indigo. And indigo, I don't know if you know, I didn't know the extent of it, but indigo is an amazing plant. It's an amazing dye, not just because it gives you that beautiful, beautiful blue colour. If I can get something here with a bit of indigo, like that. Not only does it give this beautiful colour, but it also makes the fabric stronger. So they would make the fabric out of hemp or flax, and then they would dye it with indigo. It makes it stronger. It also makes it odour resistant, dirt resistant, antibacterial, and it has an insect repellent properties to it as well. So this, of course, for very poor, people, fishermen and so on, who were having to try and scratch a living, this was a way of, layering up fabrics to make them last. So if it started to get a hole, they would patch it up, and they would dye everything with indigo, because they were not allowed to use fancy colours as well as fancy fabrics. Obviously, they couldn't afford the fancier fabrics, as I said. So they could only use this because this blue was not seen as a particularly, interesting colour or vibrant colour. So they were allowed to wear it. The samurai, the warriors, found out about the properties of indigo, and they found out how useful it was, and insect repellent, etc., and strong fabrics. So they started using it in their fabrics for their clothes, and also firefighters, because it does also have a protective quality where it helps sort of protect people from heat. Yeah, it is quite an interesting history as to why people were stitching their fabrics to make them stronger. And Sashiko, or Sashiko, actually means little stabs. Now, we all know that joke about that some stitches have about, I have the patience to stab this 1,500 times, so don't cross me. It's little stabs is just about right. I mean, if you look at these sort of pieces that I've done here, you're just doing a little in and out running stitch, really. So Sashiko meaning little stabs, and Boro coming from Boro, meaning rags. So you're doing little little stabs on your rags. And Boro also means, or Boro also means, in modern Japanese parlance, it sort of means these old clothes. I'm going out. Oh, I'm not going out in anything fancy. I'm going out in Boro, which is these old clothes, these old rags. Which is which is quite interesting. There's a very British thing about not being able to take a compliment. I know I find it very hard, and somebody who says, oh, that's a nice jacket you're wearing, you go, oh, what, this old thing? So it's that sort of style. Boro. I'm going out in any old thing. It's not something new. It's not something fancy. So the types of stitches in Sashiko relate to the religion, really, which was Shinto Buddhism. And certain designs in Sashiko sort of reflected that faith. And the main sort of tenet of Shinto Buddhism is that everything, every object, every person, animal, plant, every element, it has a kami, which is a spirit. And if you wear something with that design on that reflects that thing, you take that into yourself. So, for instance, if you have a Yamagata, which is a mountain, which is like a stepped, we will probably do one of these, it's like a stepped design, which is seen often like that. It goes up in like little steps and down. That's a mountain design. So, Yamagata means mountain. And in Shinto Buddhism, a mountain is strong and steadfast. So if you wear a piece of fabric with a Yamagata design on it, then you become strong and you become steadfast. So it's quite an interesting philosophy. There's Whilst we're not going to follow 100% when we're doing this, we're not going to be as perfect as we would be doing Sashiko properly. And there are Sashiko groups if you want to sort of study it further. We are going to, however, follow a couple of the teachings of Sashiko. One of those is that no stitch overlaps. So nothing sort of comes in and out of the same hole. Nothing meets together exactly. It's all slightly separated, and that is one of the main tenets of Sashiko. So we're going to be doing that. You don't go in and out of the same hole at any point. And that is mainly actually to do with protecting the fabric, because especially using these needles, it can, it's quite thick and it can sort of tear the fabric if you go through too many times. So we're going to be following that with our piece. So what I would say for this week is I'm going to give you the theme we have on the group, and if you're not in the group, do join us, do answer the questions when you come in. It's on Facebook, it's Slow Stitching by Hand with Eleanor Grace, which is me, Louise. I know it gets confusing. So we have a theme every month. This month is spring. What I'm going to do with my bunting, and it's totally up to you, is I'm going to have a spring summer theme on the front, and because we're going to put them together and make it a double-sided bunting, my thought is that I'd like to see spring and summer colours on one side, and then come later in the year, I might get a bit bored of looking at it. It might get a bit faded in the sun. So I'm then going to flip it over and have the autumn and winter colours on the back. Now, you're completely free to do whatever you want to do. If you want to go with a particular colour scheme, or you want to mix it up and just do a different colour each triangle, then it's totally up to you. I'm going to go through a few prompts as well, which I'm going to give you. And so the theme for this month is spring. So there is another theme for May, and there is one for June. So I'll give you those when they come out. But what I would say in terms of getting yourself prepared is get some calico, or if you haven't got calico, then you could use linen, although you don't want anything too heavy, or you could use something, a cotton, as long as it's got a little bit of strength. This is, has a little bit of weight to it, although it's not thick. You don't want anything too thick, because you've got to remember we're going to be doing fabric and then calico and then backing with calico and another layer of fabric. So, and especially when you're starting to put things together, this one is quite thick because of how I've done that. So I'm gonna show you that one. This one is quite fancy, so I'll probably save that one for next week. But I have a couple of prompts for you. So based on what I've done here, just to show you, that one, as I say, I'm going to do next week. And this one I'm going to do next week because there's a particular technique on there I wanted to show you. So it's these two here that we're going to look at. So what I did here, these are two pieces of sort of Japanese themed fabrics, and they are absolutely lovely. They're both from the V&A Museum in London, or from their collection, and they've both got such beautiful sort of pattern on them. I didn't really want to mess that up. So my first prompt for you is to find a piece of patterned fabric. So my first prompt is just going to be simple pattern. So get some calico, cut out some triangles, and then just use that fabric very simply with just the running stitch, which is the standard Sashiko stitch. Now you can see here I've done a few, I did a few French knots. That was mainly because there weren't any places here that I felt I could easily stitch into, and I just wanted to keep the pieces of fabric attached to the backdrop. So you know, technically in Sashiko you wouldn't use French knots, but I've added a few there, so if you want to as well, that's fine. But find a nice piece of pattern fabric. If you can find something, you know, Japanese theme or Oriental themed. If not, as I say, a batik is you know, is Asian, and so therefore, you know, you could use batik fabrics. But you know, just use something that's got a nice interesting pattern on there, and just follow the pattern and see where you go. So when I started off in this corner here, I just did a couple of stitches here just to anchor the corner in place, and then I decided I wouldn't fill in every I wasn't going to go for every single strand here because that would have been overkill. I just picked out a couple of strands on each piece and highlighted those, and I think it makes a really nice effect. So do please comment, please, you know, come on the group and show us what you're doing, and you know, it'd be nice to see where you take this prompt. So something patterned, and just sort of give it a bit of strength by your stitching, which is the whole point of Boro, and just follow the pattern. But you know, as I say, particularly if you've got something that's very you know, very, very bold like this, you don't want to overdo it by doing too many stitches. I see here actually, this one here, I haven't got a stitch in there, and I have in the other one, so I'm going to go and do that afterwards. Not that I'm a perfectionist. Yes, I am. I can't help myself. So that's the first prompt. So pattern. Just follow the pattern and sort of see where that takes you. And the second prompt I will show is relating to this one. So I was watching something yesterday. I hadn't done any stitching for a week, and I was really tired. I've had a really busy week off from the other job, would you believe? And I thought, oh, I just want to sit and watch something and just sort of meander. So that's going to be my second prompt is meander. Again, it's very helpful if you do have a patterned fabric, but if you don't, you could just meander across a piece of plain fabric. You could take it whichever way you want, and literally I did this mindlessly, I would say, or you could say mindfully, because it is quite mindful to lose myself, sort of half watching something on the telly, which I was quite engrossed in, and then just found myself meandering across the fabric. The only decision I made again was that I was not going to do every line. I was going to make sure the corners were, you know, particularly were put in place. You got to remember at the end you're going to go around with a stitch to put the pieces together anyway, when it's going to be double-sided. So you're going to go like that and go around the edge. But I sort of just meandered along, and then I thought, oh, I actually really like that. I did make one conscious decision at the start, and that was I wasn't going to do any of the horizontal stripes. I was only going to do some of the um, vertical stripes. And in fact, again, here I might just add a few stitches going down here, just to this one bit here, which I feel is just missing a couple. But it was very, very mindful and very lovely just to do that over the course of a couple of hours while I was watching something which I got totally engrossed in, but I still was able to meander along. So those are my prompts for this week. If you have problems cutting out triangles, I've got a little hack for you. I will just need a piece of fabric to show you. Okay, so these are 4 centimeters. Sorry, 4 inches or 10 centimeters. I'll get it right eventually. And what you can do if you're not too sure how to cut out a triangle, I have a little hack for you. So what I did is I cut out a 4-inch 10 centimeter square. I then measured the bottom, and I made a tiny little mark halfway across, which was 2 inches or 5 centimeters. I have to think about it. My brain's not working today. I then got a ruler and I drew a line to the top corner, and I drew a line to the top right hand corner, and that gave me my triangle. Now, if you've ordered one of my packs, I have sent you out a piece of like a template. I have sent you out a piece of the calico, so you can just use that as a template to cut out more. But yeah, that was the way I did it. I found that easier than trying to work out how to cut a perfect triangle. So cut yourself a square. I would say as I say, these are about 10 centimeters or 4 inches. You probably don't want to go too much smaller than that. If you struggle with something sort of that small, then you might want to go a little bit larger, but you will need more ribbon for your than 2 meters for your piece. So just to bear in mind. But that's the way I found it easiest, was to cut out the square. So the square was like that, and then I just did the middle of the bottom, drew a line up to the top right and top left, and there you have a nice triangle. So yeah, those are the first couple of prompts. I hope you enjoyed that, with a little bit of history of Boro and Sashiko. As I say, there is a bit of a list of things to get for this, so I will be putting some stuff on the shop. This is my little Boro sampler, and just to help you, because I know it's difficult buying a small amount of a lot of things. So I'm trying to keep the price down for you to make it affordable, just to jet off a little pack across the world to give you enough to work on. But most of the things you could use from your stash. I've used cotton perle for this, so I didn't have Sashiko thread at the moment at the time, and it worked really well. I do love cotton perle 8 in particular. But also, it's nice to use something different. So I'm getting used to the Sashiko thread. It is quite nice to work with, and it isn't something that is split, although as you're working with it for any length of time, it does start to come unsplit a little bit there. But yeah, it's very nice to work with. So if you want to get some extra bits and you've missed out on the packs, then do have a look at my Etsy shop. I will try and put a link in the comments. My Etsy shop is obviously in Etsy UK, but I think even if you search on the main Etsy shop, you should find it. And it's all one word, Eleanor Grace UK. So a capital E, capital G, and a capital UK. And it's the same spelling as on this. So Eleanor is ELEANOR. All one word, Eleanor Grace UK. I also have some packs already on there of some lovely little vintage and reclaimed fabrics. quite a few of those would probably be suitable if you don't have much in your stash. I also have some linen packs. I've only got about, I think, 3 or 4 left on there, which has a variety of different linens, different colours like these. And those would be perfect for the Boro piece at the end, which we're going to enjoy. But yeah, I hope this has been a nice little introduction to a bit of the history behind Boro and Sashiko, and also for you to have your first couple of prompts and your theme. So I will catch you again soon. Thanks for listening. And yeah, as I say, if you're not already on the group, do join in. We'd love to see what you do, and I'd love to hear from you on here. So if you want to comment and let me know, if you've got a colour scheme or if you're thinking of doing it in a different way, I'd love to hear where you are in the world and what you're doing with it. So take care, and I'll see you again soon. Bye.